Welcome everyone to another episode of the Most Potato Podcast. I'm Alvin, she's Jess, and we're here to talk about MaXXXine. What's up?
Okay. You're like Zorro when he was just like, watch Netflix on Netflix, and everybody was just like,
Yes.
what?
It makes sense.
He's like, I thought I did it right. No. So this is Alvin. I'm Jess.
I just did that.
And we're talking about MaXXXine and how there's not much to really talk about.
Yeah, so before we get into how we feel about the movie, this is the third installment of the X series, not Triple X, not X-Men, not any other type of X movies that we've seen in the last 20 years. But yeah, this is the third installment of the X franchise, directed by Ty West and produced and released by A24. And this time around, we're following Mia Goth's character, MaXXXine, after she survived the harrowing events of the original film X, where she's the lone survivor of a horrible massacre after trying to film a porn movie at a barn. And now she's trying to make her way out of the porn industry by breaking into Hollywood, trying to get a huge gig in this horror movie franchise. And quickly enough, her past just starts catching up with her once she lands the big role, where she is now trying to race against the clock to try to catch this killer that's attacking all of the people that are connected to her in the industry, and she needs to figure out what's going on. And that is a really cool premise. I think I like how it kind of grows the world of the X movie between X and Pearl. This feels like it's trying to do something grander. But I also kind of feel like it misses a lot of marks in terms of just entertainment factor.
Yeah.
And then also just I don't know, I feel like the story kind of meanders and gets lost. And I think the main thing about that is there's no real direct connection to the old lady Pearl, which she was the villain of this whole story, right?
Yeah.
We have the original X movie where these teenagers are getting chased down by this old ass lady and her demented husband. And then there's a prequel sequel movie where it's a character study on Pearl in her youth, before she became old and demented. And then now in this movie, she's obviously not here. She's gone. That character has been killed off by MaXXXine.
I mean, she just kind of haunts MaXXXine's thoughts, but
yeah, which is good. The one good thing is that the movie still tries to connect to that past in the first movie with the PTSD.
Yeah.
But that's also as far as it goes, because she's no longer actually the threat. Now there's this new threat of the Night Stalker, which is a real life event where an actual person named the Night Stalker was stalking women and killing them back in the 80s. So they use that as a backdrop while somebody else is committing these murders that are more directed to MaXXXine and her circle. And that alone makes a cool premise. But I think once we started watching the movie, just 15, 20 minutes in, I feel like both of us were kind of disconnecting from the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know, what were your initial thoughts on this movie?
I mean, I kept checking my phone. I kept checking the time. And
damn, that's never a good sign.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. I don't want to say it wasn't good. It was good, but now it's only been a couple hours since we've seen it, and I keep saying how everything is like MaXXXine, and because it's it's not good, it's not bad, it's just you just replaced middle of the road or Goldilocks area as just MaXXXine. It's just this is just fine. This is just MaXXXine.
It's just fine.
That's what we're gonna start saying. That's just MaXXXine. But yeah, I kept checking the time because I felt like there was a lot of good setup. And I liked some of the characters around her. Halsey, is that how you say it? Halsey?
Yeah, the musician.
I could not understand what she was saying.
Thank you.
Okay,
I thought I was the only
it was
one.
just me. I was like, is there gonna be subtitles or something?
I don't know if it was the sound mixing or it was just her specifically when she talked.
It was this accent she was trying to
she was trying to do this real Brooklyn, New York accent. I'm you're in
okay.
California.
I mean, she could be from New York, but it
didn't work.
It wasn't translating.
It was like her words were meshing and slurring into each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really weird.
So I was like, I don't know if you were doing it, but I was like trying to listen real hard because I was like, we probably gonna need some of this information for later on when we're like connecting the dots.
Because she becomes one of the first victims.
Yes, and I was just like, okay, I don't really understand what she's saying, but whatever. They did a lot of good setup, having her. There was like this one other like friend, but it was more like a co-worker in the porn industry.
Yeah,
with MaXXXine. I don't remember what her name was, if she even had a name.
Yeah.
But she was also one of the first victims of MaXXXine's friends.
Yeah. We got her actual one true friend, Leon.
I liked him.
Who worked at the video store.
I wish there was like a little bit more to him.
They should have shown more of the relationship with each other.
Yeah, because I was enjoying it. Like they were, he like works underneath her apartment building, like a floor, the first floor, selling or doing movies, renting movies.
Yeah, just renting, like selling movies.
Like a Blockbuster.
Yeah.
And, there's like a scene where they like fall asleep on the couch together. Like she's like laying on top of him, and it's just like total, just
two BFFs.
Yeah, just two BFFs. And I was just like, oh wow, she has someone like this character, especially from like the last, or not the last one, but from X, how she was. I was surprised for her to have connected with someone so much, to be so trusting with him. And I mean, there's a line where he says, yeah, he's just like, you only like me because I'm not trying to like sleep with you or something like that.
Which I think insinuates that he's gay, right?
Yeah, probably it does. But I still liked I liked that character, and I wanted a little bit more out of their relationship.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting that, and I feel like the more I watched, I was waiting for him to, come in and like be more of a presence in her life, and it just really didn't happen. Also, all that setup of them, she's clearly being followed.
Yeah.
Her friends are dying. It took so long to do all that, and I felt like it should have happened a lot quicker, because when she finally confronts the person who is, who's been trying to get her this whole entire time, I'm like, damn, I was like, isn't this going to be over like real soon? Like,
because it's just an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah, I felt like it was just like, oh, okay, I guess we're going to do this part quickly.
Yeah.
And then now when I'm thinking about it, I was like, this probably could have been like a short series. Like maybe
mini-series?
Like a mini-series of like 6
on
episodes.
HBO Max.
Sure, they could have done it, and then maybe it wouldn't have felt like MaXXXine. I think they could have done like a 6-episode thing, 40 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Just because I would have liked more setup, even with the Halsey character and stuff like that, like her work. Because we know she's doing porn, and that shouldn't be the focus of it.
But we almost never see the actual porn.
I didn't need MaXXXine to be getting her cheeks clapped or anything like that.
But that's like clearly a direct theme that Ty West is focusing on in all 3 movies, is the porn industry, and he really only delves into it deeply in the first movie.
Yeah.
Even in Pearl, it's just barely scratched on the surface.
That wouldn't have had anything to do with it in Pearl, right? Because Pearl wasn't looking to do that.
Well, no, but remember the projectionist introduces her to the porn industry, and then that plot never develops. She's just trying to make it in a church group.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So this one focuses even less on the sex film industry.
Yeah.
It's just like she's trying to get out of it. And
I just felt like we should have seen a little bit more of that world that she's trying to get out of.
The most we've seen was in the 5 minutes when she walks into her job and she sees her employee getting her cheek clapped.
Yeah.
And then the coworker's just like, hi, MaXXXine, while getting pounded.
I know, and the guy's just like, focus, we're almost done. We just need him to bust.
He's like, you said that 5 minutes ago.
I thought that was so funny. And then she's clearly getting ready, and then the girl's leaving.
Yeah.
The girl did mention that she was also going to some party or whatever, which anytime one of her friends be like, I'm going to a party in wherever, I'm like, you're going to die.
Yeah, and sure enough, they end up dead.
Yeah. So I just felt like it dragged out. I felt like it could be a mini series, maybe 6 episodes now that I think about it. But it wasn't bad. It was interesting to see what happens to her after X, because I'm just like, all your friends or your coworkers, whatever they were in X, they all got killed, and where are you now, and where are you going?
Yeah.
So
I think I feel the same exact way as you. I felt that this movie was just fine. It was very middle of the road for me. It wasn't bad, but it also wasn't great. I didn't enjoy it as much as I did X or even Pearl, which I think X is the best one of this whole series so far. And yeah, like you, I had the same issues with like the pacing. I felt like things took too long for things to happen. I was actually surprised that we had so much time left in an hour and 40 minutes. It just felt like it was over 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like by like the third act. So it took its time for sure. And I think it could have gone way faster. But there's like a lot of cool exploration of the MaXXXine character that I did appreciate. I did appreciate that she is forced to confront her trauma in her past. She's trying to run away from that and bury it because she does have a hand in killing somebody. Granted, it's killing a murderous psychopath woman, but that shit still follows you. And sure enough, it kind of does in a sense later.
Especially because she left. Well, she didn't leave, but there was a tape left at the end of X where they were recording, so there was footage.
I honestly forgot about that.
Yeah. So, well, spoiler or whatever, but we'll get more into it. But when they give, when the guy drops off the video,
the mystery man,
and then
in
she's
the leather,
watching like basically the porno that they were doing at the barn
in the first
X,
movie,
there was still stuff being recorded, so that's how they like have all this like kind of evidence. So yeah, that's
yeah. So I like the exploration of the MaXXXine character. I like that they take time to show us her vulnerability as well as her callousness, because she really don't give a shit about anybody except the Leon character.
I was surprised when she reacted. I was really surprised because he gets killed, and when they're bringing out his body, that detective bitch, she like pulls off the blanket or whatever just to get a reaction. She was mad
manipulative. She looked at MaXXXine in the eye and just be like, look.
Yeah, this is because of you, basically. And I didn't think she was gonna react.
Yeah,
I
knew she was
gonna be like, oh shit, like he's dead. But she reacted, and then they kind of threw that away too.
I don't
know. I feel like I don't know if I'm ever really truly rooting for MaXXXine, just because she just seems like cold, and then like she's just so very focused on the goal of becoming a star. And
Watashi wa star.
Oh, now you know it.
It's because of you.
But yeah, no, she's so focused on being a star. I don't think she's like Pearl per se.
No, she's not. I mean, she's as dedicated, but she's not nearly as twisted. Like she's not.
Yeah.
She's not going around just killing people left and right.
But she just doesn't seem to like really connect or emotionally give a shit about anything else. When I look at her or other people. I'm like I said, I'm surprised she reacted to Leon, but then I wish there was like more reaction from her, or more emotion, more caring, more something, because then she just feels like a girl who's willing to do whatever it takes to become a movie star, and that's it.
I think that's because that was the aim for the character, because as we see in the ending, she stays that way in terms of being like determined to get what she wants and staying there no matter what. And I think I agree with you. I think that kind of flattens the character a bit because she starts having an arc and then just goes back to the way that she was.
Exactly.
So yeah, it does like this weird, just like this halting of the development of the character. Because again, that's part of the exploration of the character that I liked, but then simultaneously didn't like towards the end, because I feel like, I don't know, I don't feel like it was fully earned that she just was back at the square one space where she started at the beginning of this movie, where she's like, I'm gonna be a star and I'm gonna stay there. It's almost like any empathy that she had started developing had just vanished by the end of the movie.
Exactly.
Which I thought was really weird, but I also think plays into the main theme of the movie, which the director character talked about a lot directly, about how Hollywood is this beast that swallows you up. So she treats this industry as something that's not a good place, but it's something you can survive off of if you don't want to do like a regular ass work that's making you miserable. You can be miserable doing all these acting gigs and doing drugs and living the high life, but you also got to be willing to do whatever it takes, is basically like the theme here. So all those explorations of the character MaXXXine I thought was cool. Some of it had fallen flat because of the ending. And I just appreciated that they at least took the time to actually explore her trauma, because even at the very beginning when she does the audition for the casting crew, you could tell she's pulling from an actual painful place, which is her experience in the first movie. The director asks her, okay, you got to make sure that when you look at the camera, you bring like trauma and pain in your performance. And she wasn't just acting. Like she even, I don't know if you noticed, but after she completed her scene, it's like she took some time to recover from her tears. It's like they were real, actual, like crying tears. It wasn't just her crying on command.
Yeah.
So moments like that I really appreciated, because otherwise if they didn't have that and she was just like the same, just like very determined character, she'd be super fucking boring.
Yeah.
And I also kind of wish that they had other side characters that were fully developed, kind of like they did with X, because you had at least other characters that were interesting with their own motivations and philosophies.
Yeah.
Here, it just felt like very... I don't know if they were going for this, but I felt like they were really isolating MaXXXine, because she's like over here just putting up walls. She's like, I don't need friendships, really. I don't need connections. I just need to be a movie star.
Yeah.
And I wish there was like a bigger cast of characters for us to latch onto, because anyone that comes in and out of scene just feels kind of random and just like throwaway.
I think that was like the point too that you made, that to keep her isolated, because that scene where she's walking with Halsey's character, I don't know, I'm just
call her Halsey.
When she's walking with her, she like kind of mentions like, yeah, I got a gig. She's just like, her friend was just like, oh, what, like another like porno or whatever.
Mm-hmm. It's a horror movie.
She's like, it's a horror movie, and she's like, oh. And she's just like, well, congratulations. But it felt like kind of like...
fake.
It felt fake.
And felt kind of haterish.
She was just like, she's like, I'm waiting when I get my shot or whatever. Yeah. And then MaXXXine's just like, you just got to work hard. Yeah, she's like, it'll come. You just got to keep working hard. Yeah. And it's kind of just like... It also felt like, yeah, you're not going to get it or whatever. You're not that, you're not like me. And there was like this little like back and forth type of thing where it's just like, they know each other, they hang out, but it's only because like they're in the same sort of work. Yeah,
they're like employees. They're co-workers that kind of hang out, but they're not like friends.
Yeah, so I was just like, she doesn't really like have anyone like that except maybe Leon.
Leon's really like the only friend.
Yeah, but this is why we needed more from Leon, and like, because I'm just like, what makes them friends? Like, how does he support her?
Yeah.
Why does she feel she can go to him?
Because that's like, she has a really hard exterior that she doesn't let anyone in. And I was just like, I would like to see more time with her and Leon. Why Leon?
Exactly.
And then he goes as soon as he comes, which sucks.
I know.
Yeah. So this whole thing with like not having side characters that are well developed enough kind of felt empty for me in terms of like the quality of the story and the enjoyment of the story. I feel like movies tend to work best when you have an ensemble cast that you at least get to know a little bit of and know why these people are interacting with each other. Because most of the time, it just feels kind of random. To this right now, like after the movie, I'm just like, why Leon? Yeah. Like, he's a cool dude and he's probably gay, so he doesn't want to fuck you. But
and then
there's clearly more.
Other person that she could go to was her entertainment agent,
Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah, I keep calling him Gus. He's Gus and
he's
everything.
Basically a fusion of Gus Fring and Saul Goodman in this movie.
Yeah,
I did not expect the turn that they made with him, with him being like a crooked ass entertainment lawyer.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I wasn't expecting
his name is cool, Teddy Knight. He sounds like a 1980s like music producer who does sketchy shit.
Yeah, I really liked his character, and I really thought it was funny when she's like, okay, I definitely can't handle all the shit that's going on around me. It's like, it's too much.
I like that they had that side support character that's like helping her navigate the Hollywood industry.
Exactly, because I thought he was going to be like sketchy, maybe like be bought and turn on her or something like
double
that.
cross her.
He's like legit about his clients and like the work that he's doing, and like
he had a throwaway line in one of the scenes together where he was just like, I'm willing to go to jail for my clients. That's how much I care about your career.
Yeah.
And he wasn't fucking joking.
I know.
He wasn't joking. He murdered somebody.
Exactly.
He actually
I was just
killed
like,
somebody.
What? I loved it. He was like one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, just him and just the support that he was giving her was really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, see, that goes back to the reason why I was like, you got to give more meat to some of these side characters.
Yeah.
I could watch a whole prequel series on this dude. Like, honestly.
Yeah, because he's like, why didn't you come to me? And he's like, oh, I guess I get it. But he's just like, you should have came to me. And we
come to me whenever you have the sketchy shit going on.
Yeah.
Because MaXXXine has a stalker, basically, in the Kevin Bacon character, who is basically like a hired informant that's like passing messages from this mysterious person to MaXXXine, being like, go meet this person at this sketchy-ass fucking address. And MaXXXine is constantly rejecting that. And she's constantly keeping that away because she's like, I don't fucking know you. sounds like it has something to do with my past that I want nothing to do with.
And she's like, I got work, so...
Yeah. Yeah, and she's also not trying to get framed for a crime that she kind of committed, but not really. Like, she killed somebody, but it was in self-defense.
Yeah.
So the entire movie is her running away from this menacing figure through Kevin Bacon. And his performance is really fantastic. He plays like a really good, slimy person that's just willing to do whatever it takes to get his job done.
Yeah.
And he was good at being an asshole, because every time he showed up, I'm just like, man, just fuck this guy up, please. Which MaXXXine does, which is freaking crazy.
Yeah.
And that only exacerbates her problem, too. Like, now that she had just physically assaulted this man, now he's making it personal. He's just like, at this point, I'm going to make your life living hell. I don't care if you end up dead. I don't care what my boss says.
Yeah.
So I really liked the antagonist in this movie, though I wish there was a little more, I don't know, direct connection, because when we find out, like, the main final villain, I guess, it just feels kind of weird and thrown in there and random, but I also kind of expected it with, because the entire movie kind of makes you believe that, oh, maybe the Night Stalker might be the one going after MaXXXine, but the police officer characters are like, well, there's another killer that's doing something similar, but it's not the same person.
Yeah.
That's the person that's going after MaXXXine. And the entire time, I'm just like, I feel like they're going to pull somebody from her past. And the whole time I'm thinking, it can't be anybody in the first movie, because everyone's dead at that barn. There's no way anybody made it out of there. Like, half of those people are inside an alligator's belly. And then the only other thing I could think of was, it's the father. Because the movie opens with a childhood video of MaXXXine in, like, the 50s? Of her doing, like, this little dance routine for the church. And you hear her father in the background just cheering her on. And that was, like, the only thing that kept it in my mind. I was just like, she keeps trying to run away from, like, her past in the first movie, but I feel like at some point we're gonna find out that it's her fucking dad that's, like, killing all these people.
I didn't even put that together. Like, I remember, I know the clips were there of, like, her dad recording her and saying, you know, like, you know, you're gonna be the best or whatever.
Yeah.
But I didn't even, I guess maybe because I didn't rewatch the first one recently. It's been a while, but I just realized it's like, oh yeah, she's basically like a runaway. Like, she was, like, you know, in church and all that stuff like that. She has, like, really religious, like, parents or background or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that, and I was just like, who the fuck could this be?
I think because you were so fucking bored, like, the first, like, 30, 40 minutes, because you mentioned it was dragging and you kept checking your phone.
Yeah.
I was paying attention enough because it was just interesting enough, but I was just like, damn, just pick up the pace here. Like, I need more connections going on here.
Yeah.
But, like, as soon as, I don't know, as soon as, like, the police officers' characters showed up and they just said, yeah, it's not the Night Stalker, then I'm like, it has to be somebody from her past. It's not going to be somebody in the movies because they're all fucking dead. So I'm just like, they introduced us to the dad character out of, like, camera. So I'm just like, guess what? It's probably the dad. Yeah. And then sure enough, when we get to that point in the movie, it's the dad. Well, he's behind everything.
Like a police officer who found the tape and who became obsessed with her, and then I don't know. I just was bored.
Yeah, but I was very curious about who the mysterious killer was, just because every time he showed up, he's just completely, like, shot from, like, the side or the back, completely just decked out in leather. I'm just like, how are you not sweating in that fucking thing? It looks like summertime in California right now.
Yeah.
And then there's actually a scene where he's watching MaXXXine at one of her sex shows privately, and when the way that he grips on his thighs, I didn't think was, like, sexual tension. I always pictured it as, like, this is probably, like, vitriol and anger and just wanting to, like, tear her apart physically.
No, I think that was probably what they were going for, because that's how I felt. I wasn't like, oh, he's getting off to this or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it just, when it's revealed that it's her dad that's been following her this whole time, it just made it even more clear. Because he, like, breaks the panel that's on the little window that he's, like, watching her through.
I was like, how strong are you, dude?
Yeah.
Just rip that shit off.
I was just like, what the hell? I'm like, he's
angry. And it just made it more disturbing that was the father watching his daughter perform.
Yeah.
It's just like, but that was an interesting shot because, again, now that you find out that it's the father, the context makes sense. Like, he's not this perverted person that's, like, incestuous about his daughter. It's like, he's so fixated and obsessed with maintaining purity in people.
Yeah.
And keeping away sexual deviancy.
Because the women that were being attacked by the Night
Stalker,
they were just, like, kind of random like women. They weren't sex workers. Everyone that was around her, basically.
Yeah, they were random victims.
Yeah,
that were women.
That were women. I mean, they could have been,
I don't know the full history, so I don't think he was specifically targeting sex workers.
I think it just seemed like it was pretty random. But then this guy, her dad, he was targeting people sex workers. And then even Leon would have been somebody because he's selling the movies. And then, like you said, he may be gay as well, too.
Yeah.
Which that's something, he's probably like, oh, yeah, the Lord's going to smite you or some shit or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I just thought that was interesting because I was just like, did he was only going after, people in the sex work, but the Night Stalker was just like getting random people who were walking alone at night or random women.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and actually, now that you brought up the scene of Leon getting killed, I'm curious about that line that he mentioned, because there's like an out-of-context conversation that happens between Leon and the Kevin Bacon character before he kills him. There's like a montage of the camera cutting to that, and then MaXXXine studying for her lines for the movie that she's going to be in. At one point, Leon says, "I'm not in that business anymore." And I was just like, what business specifically? Because, like, why is Kevin Bacon's character coming to him? Is he, like, just asking for information? Or is he asking Leon to do something? Because, I don't know, for some reason, my brain just went, like, did he used to be, like, a hitman or some shit? Like, are you asking Leon to, like, threaten MaXXXine?
No, I don't think it was Kevin Bacon's character didn't go into the store. It was, like, these random guys. Like, this random... Yeah. Because when he closed the door, I saw like this older, short, like maybe bald guy walk out, and then he just like shook his head and he's just like whatever. Yeah, I think Kevin Bacon's character was just in the car waiting. Yeah, he's like, oh, this is the shop or whatever and stuff, and then somehow her dad snuck in maybe behind them or with them or whatever. Yeah, and then he like veered off, and then those guys were asking him something. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what he meant by that line.
They never clarify what he meant by, like, I'm not in that business anymore. I'm just like, I don't know, did you used to work with John Wick or something? But maybe I had to do something with sex entertainment or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It had to do with movies or something.
I wish I knew. I wish they gave more time to Leon.
Yeah.
I don't know. He was one of the more interesting characters.
And then they just killed him. I was really upset about that.
Yeah. So I wish they had fleshed that out more, because I felt like that was like a piece of the story that just felt off and confusing. But the reveal of the MaXXXine's father being this killer that's murdering all these sex workers just felt really odd to me. It just, first of all, I'm like, how are you like renting out or owning this giant ass palace on the hills here? It looks like it belongs to some fancy producer. I'm just like, how did you acquire all this space? How did you, like, fixate yourself here? How long have you been here?
Well, he's probably got donations because where the movie sets and all that stuff like that is going on, where they're filming the movie. You see all those people out there protesting, like, horror movies are bad, and,
Hollywood is selling sin.
Yes, all that stuff. So, he's, I don't know, is he a pastor? Is that what he's supposed
basically.
To be? So he's probably like, taking the tithes and all the stuff like the donations, and he's been doing it for a while because when did MaXXXine run away? Like,
I have no idea.
When she was like really, really young, she probably ran away. This whole time he's been like waiting and like looking for her and stuff. So that whole time he's been selling, Hollywood is sin, sex is sin, all these movies that are selling the music, because when the movie first started, they had like clips of like this musician in court saying, oh yeah, you're basically here and like being sued because of your music. And we didn't know. Then you had like parents like saying, oh, we didn't know that the songs on this album had this in it or whatever, and this is what they're selling to our kids, or all that stuff. Basically people who are just like, Cardi B's supposed to be a role model for our kids or whatever. It's just like, no, parental locks and watch your own fucking kids. Yeah. That's what you're supposed to do. So that was like the whole thing. So I'm assuming that over the years, the decades, he's been getting funds. He has supporters, because you just had these random people at the end of the movie when everything started popping off, like armed and ready to like fight for him. Yeah, like, I was
they
just
literally
like,
armed. They had shotguns and shit.
It was almost like some weird cult.
Yeah.
So
it literally is a cult.
It makes sense that he would be able to have all these resources, and get this money if he has people who believe the same thing. And it was a lot of people protesting on the daily about this sort of thing. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Yeah.
Even then, even with that explanation, it just felt like kind of random just to like throw in the father in there. And I think my main problem is because we no longer have a direct connection to the main murderous villain of Pearl, because she's kind of like the centerpiece of these two stories that we've had before this movie. It kind of feels like having the Halloween movie without Michael Myers, which they have done before and it failed miserably.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was really fucking bad. I'm not saying that that's what this movie did. Again, it's actually it's just not a great movie. I just felt like there was like a huge disconnect between Pearl being gone, and then now Maxine's father just coming out of nowhere and being like, yeah, I'm the one killing people for you, and I'm trying to purify you again. It just felt like out of nowhere, but at the same time, I saw it coming. It's like a weird experience. And I just didn't feel like it was like the most compelling villain to have in your... If this is the final movie, which I think it is, it just feels like a complete trilogy. Yeah. It just kind of feels shoehorned to have like this new villain here. Because I know Pearl's dead. She's gone. There's no way she could come back. It's not a supernatural horror.
Yeah.
It just feels weird that you don't have your marquee villain character as the one chasing Maxine through the entire franchise. It's like, now her father's in the picture. And I was just like, maybe if they planted more seeds, maybe a little more stories of like the father in previous movies, then maybe. But I don't know. It just felt like kind of out of nowhere. And I was just like, well, I saw it coming, but it still feels weird.
See that. I just feel like I like that the second movie was a prequel to like kind of explain Pearl and her history and stuff. And her whole thing was becoming a star, becoming famous, being able to dance. And
she was literally
like
a clone of Maxine, or Maxine was a clone.
So then X is about that, where I think there was like a scene in X where like Pearl, she was just like in bed with Maxine, like petting her. Like, it was just like, oh, the youth. I remember I used to be
I'm
like
trying to
this,
absorb you.
Basically. And there was like this whole like weird vibe with that. So I feel like she was definitely jealous of Maxine because she probably saw herself in Maxine, or saw that Maxine had something.
They're literally played by the same character, the same actor.
Exactly. So I feel like it was more like she sees what Maxine's trying to accomplish. She sees something in her. She's like, that's how I was. Yeah. And there's like this awful like murderous jealousy along with all the issues Pearl has. Yeah. And then I feel like obviously Maxine, this film becomes Maxine's film, where it's just like, well, she got further than Pearl, who also had a very strict and religious upbringing with her mother. Her mother and Maxine's dad would get along perfectly fine, you know, given how they are. But I just feel like it's not necessary to have Pearl in this one so much, just because it's like it's more focused on Maxine and her actually being able to get the goal of being a star and what she's gonna do to become a star. And she's not as bad as Pearl, but I just feel like there was something wrong with Pearl. She needed like a lot of help, maybe some meds or something like that. That would have been fine.
She needed so much.
She needed so much help. Maxine, I don't know.
She needs therapy. At the very least.
Yeah, I think she needs like some good long therapy sessions.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like she's like as like murderous as Pearl. I feel like she's willing to do whatever it takes and protect herself and make sure she gets further. But she's not just killing people for no reason because oh, you got the part and I didn't. You know? Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, I didn't feel like Pearl had to be as like Pearl had her time. She couldn't get it. Now is Maxine. Maybe they're like, I don't know, reincarnation, doppelgangers type of shit. I don't know. And Maxine's the one that made it.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a fair point, and I can totally see that. It unfortunately doesn't change how I feel about the movie, but I think what you say does make sense.
Yeah.
Because again, it's called Maxine. It is about this character ultimately. So yeah, because then she ultimately gets what she wants. Like after like this whole crazy shootout happens at the end of the movie, where she actually ends up killing her father and is still able to continue on in the Hollywood business. Yeah. Which, again, suspension of disbelief, because in real life, she probably would get tried for that, especially when the police are in a helicopter telling her, put the damn gun down.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Like, we've already caught the guy. But I digress. This is Hollywood. You can get away with stuff. You can blow your dad's head off, apparently, and still go and film a sequel to a very popular horror franchise movie.
I need to get into Hollywood then.
Yeah, and then the movie just basically concludes with Maxine, you know, about to like prepare for the sequel movie, and then they have like her prosthetic head on the bed, and it looks just like her, and she's talking to the director, and she just basically is asked by the director, like, so now that everybody knows your name, you got what you wanted, what else is there? What more do you want now? What's your next goal? And she just goes, I just never want this to end.
Yeah.
And then that kind of feels like ominous, because it's almost like she'll never accept not being in Hollywood, even though there'll be a time when she ages out of it, and they won't use her nearly as much, and she might end up being like the next Pearl, who just can't handle not being in the spotlight.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what they were insinuating, especially with the zooming in on the fake decapitated head of hers. Which, again, I was kind of disappointed that she kind of regressed as a character, but I think it also connected to like one of the main themes of this movie, which is what the director character was mentioning about how Hollywood is a beast that swallows you up. And you have to do whatever it takes to appease its taste, or else it'll spit you back out, and you go back to right where you came from.
Exactly.
Go
That's
straight
what the
to poverty.
director said to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like her not wanting it to end, it doesn't have to mean like she can't accept no longer being, because she's gonna age. That's if she doesn't, die young from all the cigarettes she smokes
and all the coke.
Yeah,
she's bumping.
The coke that she does. But you saw that she also had a star. Her name was on the stars or whatever that they have. So I think it's also about the name being known even well after she's gone too. I want to say that would be enough for her eventually.
But she has an insatiable appetite.
Yeah, she does. But I think she's also happy as long as everyone knows like her name.
Yeah.
I think as long as even after she's gone, people are still like, oh, MaXXXine back in this movie, this great movie, because I think her and Leon, they were talking about like, the 5 greatest like movies or what, horror movies, and then she's like, MaXXXine, that's the last one, is going to be one of them, because there's a lot of horror movies that we go back to that we're just like, oh, this is great. We can rewatch this no matter how many times or whatever decades from. I think that's her goal, is to be like that.
She wants to be immortalized in film.
Exactly. So I think that is what she meant by that. But I also agree that it might not be enough for her. Like, she's just insatiable about...
Because I think, the movie kind of tries to make somewhat of a dark critique on the Hollywood industry, which is, it is a very unhealthy place to be in. If you're not careful, if you don't surround yourself with a healthy circle and a team that cares about you, you can quickly get sucked into like selling your soul, like, and literally selling yourself as somebody trying to stay into Hollywood. Because we hear all these terrible, awful stories that come out of Hollywood, specifically with like sex trafficking rings, like child sex trafficking. Like, that's a prevalent thing that for some reason is not being investigated hard enough in the real world. And I feel like that sort of bleeds into the commentary being made in this movie about how, the director doesn't paint Hollywood as like this picture perfect place. It actually is painted as like a really gritty place that's like eat or be eaten. We see how like Maxine's interactions with other actresses can be very competitive. We see that with the Lily Collins character, where she's just like, oh, like, you'll have your chance. I've been doing this for a while now, and I'm not there yet, but I'm getting up there. And then that clearly doesn't happen when her character gets killed off. And then the director later mentions in the movie how, she was never really a star. She was good, but she was never star material.
I was like, damn, what happens when MaXXXine gets killed? You going to say the same thing to the next
Yeah, it's
one?
like you could easily get flicked off the rung at any moment. Yeah. So it's like, it's really like eat or be eaten, and it's not a healthy place to be in.
Yeah.
So I do like that the movie is like kind of exploring how Hollywood is a very hostile place, because at the same time, there's these hyper-religious people who are protesting against Hollywood, albeit for more like obnoxious reasons, like, oh, you can't be depicting sex in movies, it's ruining our children. Like, it's protesting some of like the stupidest shit. And I think that's really funny how they're protesting against Hollywood, but there's actually more valid reasons to be very suspicious and like unwilling to accept Hollywood. And they're just not focused on that, because first of all, they're not aware of it. It's the 80s. You're not really going to find out about shit until like the internet age. And I thought that was like a nice tug of war between like these two forces, the hyper-religious America and then Hollywood being like this wild, crazy, wild, wild west where anything could happen. and how there's no resolution. It's just like Maxine has to choose. Are you going to end up being of just a regular old person, or are you going to be this superstar who has to keep giving your all no matter what, even if you're exhausted, even if you're not happy with it anymore, you still have to give so much to stay relevant. And how like either option just wasn't really like the most healthy for her, but the ideal for her was staying in Hollywood. So I like that they painted Hollywood as kind of like a monster, while there was like 2 serial killers going on in this movie as well. I also was disappointed that there wasn't like, I don't even remember if X had any scares, but like there's absolutely no scares in this movie. It's like every time something violent happened, we almost barely see it. There's very few times where we get to see horrible violence happening to people. I feel like
only when Maxine was talking to the Halsey character, and she was just like, she's like, every girl that said that she's fine, she could take care of herself, always ends up dead. It's funny because she ended up being dead, but right after that, Maxine like is walking home, and she takes like this shortcut, and she gets to this fence that's usually unlocked, but it was chained up, and then this guy was following her. And then she totally just turns around because she's carrying her piece. And then has him.
That was a cool moment.
Has him stripped down naked and stuff like that, and totally turns the whole thing around on him. And she does take care of herself, but obviously that's not the biggest threat that's going on for her.
Biggest threat is Maxine's heel, because
that was just gross.
Oh, that poor guy's nuts. But that he brought that on himself.
So not that poor guy.
Oof. That was another interesting theme that the movie brought up, is they kept reinforcing how Maxine needs other people, and she just refuses to accept help. Like it starts as early as like the scene where she's auditioning, where the lady's telling her like, oh, we have lines over there, if you ever forget your lines you can look over and read, and she's like, I know my lines. I'm like, damn, can she get a thank you? Or it's like, oh, I appreciate that. Like even little interactions like that, she won't say thank you. She doesn't say thank you until she meets the Lily Collins character, and Maxine's in a really vulnerable state at that point, and she doesn't really talk to Lily Collins' character. Lily's doing all the talking, and she's looking at Maxine's face, and she's just like, oh, don't worry, like, don't feel scared. She's reading her face, and she's seeing her vulnerability. And at one point, like when Lily's done talking, like Maxine actually says thank you in terms of like, thanks for giving me this advice on how to be relevant in Hollywood.
Yeah, but then Lily Collins is like, no problem, Nadine, or whatever.
Yeah, she forgets her name real quick. So
and then
I think that was on purpose.
Yeah, and then Maxine, I feel like there was like a slight change.
Yeah.
Because like you said, she was vulnerable, and she said thank you for like the first time ever in the film.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't even saying thank you to Leon and stuff, and they're like close friends. And I think this was after the detective was just like, help us figure out who the killer is, so that way, there's not another victim or whatever. And then she's just like, she just needs, she didn't care, and Maxine was just like, whatever. But then when the girl was just like, oh yeah, I'm going to this party and stuff, and she's like, oh shit.
She could have taken time to warn her about that party, but
she didn't. She doesn't. Just left it.
Yeah.
Was that before or after she called her Nadine or whatever? Either way, Maxine was just like, oh well, not my fucking problem. But then she starts to feel a little bit bad. And I thought she was going to find her, but she does.
She finds her just in pieces.
In a suitcase, couple suitcases.
Yeah. And then and then they have like the 2 police officers kind of reinforcing that theme of like Maxine needs to reach out for help, and then she just doesn't do it. And then by the time she does kind of need the help, it's already too late. People are dying left and right. So I like that they kind of reinforce the idea that Maxine really did need help from other people, because again, that reinforces the whole theme of Hollywood being this monster place where if you're not careful, if you're not around the right people, you could easily get taken advantage of. So I thought that was a very interesting exploration of her character, and how she basically never asks for help. She ends up getting some help at the very end, but she still doesn't like ultimately ask for it. I think that's basically all the thoughts that I had on this movie. Was there anything else that stood out to you?
I'm good.
All right, so what would you rate this movie?
I would rate this a baked potato.
A baked potato, not a Maxine potato?
That is a Maxine potato, a baked potato. It's right in the middle. It's yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would give it a baked potato for this as well. Again, there was entertaining parts to it, but overall the movie wasn't exciting. It wasn't as thrilling as like the previous 2 movies. And yeah, kind of like a weak ending to this trilogy if this is like the last movie. But I mean, it was still a decent enough time. I wouldn't say rush out to the theaters for this. I feel like just wait until it hits streaming.
I think I would say that too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because like I'm a fan of like the X series, and I feel like as fans of the X series, I think this movie is going to be kind of a mixed bag for people. I feel like people are either going to like it or they're going to be like, it's all right, or people just straight up be like, this shit was boring.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, I would say this lands on a baked potato. It wasn't a bad movie, but it wasn't great. So here's to the end of the X franchise. I think I don't know if Ty West is trying to do a fourth secret one, but
I hope not.
I think you can leave it. I think you can leave it here.
Not in a bad way. I just leave it here. I think it's good to.
Yeah. Well, all right. That was our thoughts on MaXXXine. Guys, did you watch this movie? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you MaXXXine it? Is it just like in the middle of the road for you? Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the polls and questions on Spotify, wherever that is. And then remember to give us a like, subscribe, and hit notification bell so that you know when our episodes go up. We thank you guys so much for tuning in to another installment of the Most Potato Podcast. Thank you so much. We love you. And remember, as always, guys, have Giancarlo Esposito as your lawyer.
Oh, yes.
Always.
Gus Fring, we out here.
Yes. All right, guys. Have a good one.